the abandoned cry. The rain on the metallic city never stopped. It slid down the glowing walls of the alien orphan shelter, where countless young ones waited for adoption, each belonging to a different race, each hoping someone would pick them. But no one ever picked her. She was small, pale-skinned for her kind, with faint silver marks on her forehead, marks that others called the curse of the void. Her name didn't matter to anyone, not even the caretakers. They just called her the quiet one. She never caused trouble. She never spoke much. She just stared at the stars through the glass roof every night, wondering what it felt like to be wanted. The war had ended years ago, and with it came hatred toward her species. They were blamed for the destruction of colonies, and no family from any world wanted a reminder of that pain. So the little girl stayed, year after year, watching others leave with smiling faces and warm arms. She remained cold and forgotten until one day a human walked through the steel doors. He wasn't a soldier or a diplomat, just a tired man in a dark jacket, carrying a simple data pad and an expression that said he had seen too much loss. The director greeted him politely. "Sir, all available children are listed here." But the man didn't look at the list. His eyes wandered across the room, past the laughing younglings, past the colorful ones with wings or tails, until they stopped on her, sitting alone under the leaking glass roof, staring at the stars as usual. "She's not on the list," the director said quickly. "No one chooses her." "You should look at—" "I'll take her," the man interrupted, his tone firm but calm. The director blinked, confused. "Sir, you don't understand. She's from the—" "I said, I'll take her." The girl lifted her head slowly, disbelief in her wide eyes. No one had ever said those words before. Not for her. When he approached, he knelt down to her level. "You like the stars?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded, her small voice barely a whisper. "They don't hate me," he smiled faintly. "Then I think we already have something in common. It wasn't a grand rescue, no soldiers or ships. Just a quiet human and a broken child walking out of a place that had forgotten what compassion meant." The journey back to the human sector was silent. She watched the lights outside the shuttle window, afraid to blink, afraid this moment might vanish. He handed her a blanket, warm and heavy. "You can sleep, kid," he said gently. "Oh, you're safe now." She wanted to ask what safe meant, but she didn't. Instead, she leaned against the cold window and whispered to herself, "Maybe this time I won't be sent back." When they arrived at the small human outpost, she saw other children running, laughing, calling the man Dad. Her heart ached, thinking she didn't belong here either. But then one of the kids ran up, grinning. "Hey, you must be the new one. Come on, Dad makes the best hotcakes." The word Dad echoed in her mind like thunder through an empty valley. She froze, tears building in her eyes before she could stop them. That night, as the human fixed the old heater and hummed a tune she didn't recognize, she sat near him and whispered, "Why did you choose me?" He looked up, eyes kind but tired. "Because no one should be alone," he said. "And I saw the same look in your eyes that I once had." She didn't fully understand, but for the first time in her short, painful life, she felt something warm in her chest, something she didn't have a name for. Outside the rain fell again, but now it sounded softer, like a lullaby. And for the first time, she dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, this human wasn't going to leave, learning to call him father. The days that followed felt like dreams the little girl didn't trust. Every morning, sunlight filtered through the metal blinds, painting golden lines across the small home. She would wake to the smell of something cooking, eggs, bread, and a strange sweet syrup the humans called honey. She still didn't know what to do. She would sit quietly at the table, hands folded, waiting for someone to tell her what was allowed. The man, her new guardian, never rushed her, never shouted. He just smiled and said softly, "Eat while it's warm, kid." At first, she would just nibble at the bread, afraid it might be taken away. On her world, food was rationed, given by cold machines with no faces. But here, he placed the plate in front of her himself like it mattered. The other kids treated her like one of them. even though her silver forehead marks glowed faintly in the dark. One of the boys gave her a small toy starship, saying, "Dad made this for me when I was scared of space. It helps." She didn't know why, but she clutched it tightly every night, afraid someone would ask for it back. One evening, the man sat fixing an old hoverbike in the yard. The girl stood by the door, watching quietly. Her mind buzzed with questions she had never dared to ask before. Finally, she whispered, "You fix things?" He looked up, grease on his hands. "Yeah, that's what I do. I fix things that are broken, ships, engines, sometimes hearts," he added with a smile. She tilted her head, confused. "Hearts?" He chuckled softly. "It's a human thing." She didn't understand completely, but she liked how he said it, like even broken things could be made whole again. That night, while he tucked the younger kids into bed, she stayed by the window, staring at the stars again. When he came by, he noticed and asked, "You still miss your people?" She shook her head slowly. "They never wanted me," she said quietly. "I was born different. They said I was wrong." The man crouched beside her, voice low and steady. "Listen, kid, being different doesn't make you wrong. It makes you you. That's something worth being proud of." No one had ever said that to her before. A few weeks passed, and slowly she began to smile more, laugh even. She followed him around when he worked on machines, handing him tools, sometimes guessing what he needed before he asked. He began teaching her words from his language. Thank you, good night, family, and one that made her nervous every time she heard it. Father, one afternoon, during a sandstorm warning, he ran through the base securing panels. Yelling for the kids to stay inside, she ran after him, helping shut a vent. And when the wind howled and the dust hit like knives, she saw him shielding the smallest child with his coat. Something inside her broke open. She shouted, "Dad!" "Be careful." Without thinking, the words slipped out. Unplanned, raw and real. He froze for a second, then turned, the storm wind whipping around him. He gave her a tired but proud smile. "That's the first time you called me that," he said through the noise. When they finally got everyone safe inside, the girl sat by the heater, trembling not from fear, but from something she didn't understand, a strange lightness in her chest. He handed her a warm drink and sat beside her. "You okay?" She nodded slowly, eyes on the mug. "Did I say it wrong?" He chuckled. "No, kid, you said it perfectly." She didn't reply, but a small smile crept onto her face as she leaned against his shoulder. Later that night, when the storm quieted, he looked out the window and whispered, "You remind me of my daughter. She's gone now?" The girl looked up, her voice soft. "Was she like me?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, brave and full of light." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was peaceful, like two lost souls who had finally found something worth holding on to. The next morning, when he called out, "Breakfast, kids," she ran to the table first, not because she was hungry, but because she wanted to be the one to hand him the plate. And when he smiled and said, "Thanks, kid," she whispered under her breath, "Thank you, Dad." The words still felt strange, but this time it also felt right, the gift of trust. The days turned into weeks, and slowly the girl began to feel the world around her changing, not in the way of machines or wars, but in the quiet way that warmth spreads through cold metal. She had her own blanket now, her own corner filled with little things the human kids gave her. A drawing, a star-shaped pendant, a small photo of their family that she had been invited to join. But deep inside, she still carried a shadow, the fear that one day he would send her back one morning while she helped clean the workbench. She accidentally broke one of his old tools. The metal snapped in her hands with a sharp sound, and her heart froze. She stared at the pieces, trembling, her mind flashing back to the orphan shelter, where punishment came swiftly and hard. When the man walked in, she quickly hid the broken pieces under a cloth, but he noticed her shaking hands. "What happened, kid?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Her lips trembled. "I didn't mean to. I'm sorry." "Please don't," he stopped her. Kneeling down, his voice was soft but firm. Hey, look at me," she hesitated, then raised her eyes, expecting anger, but all she saw was calm understanding. "It's just a tool," he said with a small smile. We'll fix it together. She blinked, confused. You're not angry? He shook his head. No, kid, things break. People make mistakes. That's how we learn. Her hands loosened, and for the first time she smiled through tears. It was the first moment she truly understood what trust felt like. That maybe he wasn't like the others. That evening, while he worked on a repair job, she brought him a cup of tea, the way she had seen the older kids do. He looked surprised, then chuckled. Trying to spoil me, She shook her head shyly. You fix everything. Even me. He paused, his expression softening. You're doing all the fixing yourself, kid. I'm just here to help you remember who you are. That night she couldn't sleep. She sat by the window again, holding the toy starship close. Outside, lightning flashed over the horizon. A storm was coming again, but this time she wasn't afraid. The next day, something strange happened. A military transport ship landed at the outpost. Its insignia bore the mark of her old empire, the same people who had abandoned her. The commander, tall, cold-eyed, stepped out and handed the human a file. We're here for the child, he said sharply. Her presence violates the interworld custody law. The girl froze, her heart sinking. She looked up at the man, fear in her eyes. Are they taking me back? The human didn't answer right away. He read the file, then closed it slowly. No, he said quietly. She's my daughter now. The alien commander frowned. She is not your species, human. She doesn't belong to you. She belongs here, he said firmly, his tone like steel. She's not property. She's family. The soldiers behind the commander shifted. Uncertain, the air was tense. Finally, the commander glared. You're making a mistake. The man stepped forward. Then it's a mistake I'll proudly live with. The alien delegation left after issuing threats of legal action, but the girl didn't hear much after that. She ran to him and hugged him tightly, trembling. You didn't let them take me. He knelt down, holding her close. I told you, kid, no one's taking you anywhere. That night, when the storm finally hit, she stayed near him, a small hand gripping his sleeve as thunder rolled. He looked down and smiled, still scared of storms. She shook her head, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Not anymore. Not when you're here. He brushed her hair back gently. That's my brave girl. For the first time, she didn't just feel safe. She felt home later when she went to her room. She found something new on her bed, a small bracelet with her name engraved in both human and alien script. A note lay beside it, written in simple handwriting. Family isn't born, it's made. Welcome home, my daughter. Her eyes filled with tears as she whispered the word she had once been too afraid to say, Dad. The thunder outside rolled again, but this time it sounded like applause. The day the world tested their bond. The next few days passed quietly, but the shadow of that visit never really faded. The girl could see the worry in her father's eyes. Whenever the communication terminal blinked, he would read messages in silence, delete them, and try to smile for the kids. But she knew something was wrong at night. She sometimes heard him talking to someone through the old transmitter, his voice low, tired, and filled with the weight of choices no one should have to make. One night, she crept to the door and listened. She's just a child, he said firmly. You can't expect me to hand her over like cargo. The voice on the other end was harsh, metallic. Her presence endangers Earth's treaty with the Syndicate. You know that. I know this, he replied, his tone calm but burning. If we trade away our compassion for politics, we're no better than the monsters we fight. Silence followed. Then static. The girl stepped back quickly before he could see her. Her chest felt heavy. She didn't understand treaties or laws, but she knew he was fighting for her, and that made her both proud and scared. The next morning, she tried to act normal, helping him in the workshop, holding tools, handing screws. He smiled like always, but his eyes had that same quiet storm. At noon, the alarm sirens blared across the outpost. Everyone rushed outside. Above the sky, ships appeared, black and sleek, carrying the emblem of the Syndicate, the same ones who wanted her back. The man's voice was calm but sharp. Inside, kids. Go inside now. She froze, staring at the ships. "They came for me," she whispered, guilt rising like fire in her throat. He grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly. "No one's taking you, do you hear me?" When the soldiers landed, their leader stepped forward. "Armored and cold, human," he said. "By order of the syndicate, surrender the subject, or face military consequence." The human straightened, standing between them and the house. "You'll have to go through me," the alien commander's eyes narrowed. "You would defy galactic law for one defective child." He didn't hesitate. "For my daughter." Every time the soldiers raised their rifles, the girl clutched his coat, terrified. Her markings glowed faintly with panic. Before the first shot could be fired, the sirens changed tone. Another signal, this time from orbit. A transmission came through the base speakers. "Incoming Earth Defense Fleet, responding to distress beacon." The sky above cracked open with light as human ships descended, small but fierce, fast and sharp-edged. Their engines burned like blue fire. The alien commander looked up in shock. "You summoned a fleet for one child?" The man smirked, his voice quiet but proud. "That's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't abandon our own." The soldiers hesitated. Clearly outnumbered, the commander scowled. "This isn't over," and ordered a retreat. When the last ship left the sky, silence fell again. The man exhaled slowly, turning to her. "You okay, kid?" She couldn't speak. Tears spilled down her face as she hugged him tightly. Why did you risk everything for me?" He brushed her hair back, his rough hand trembling slightly. "Because you're worth everything," he said softly. "And one day I hope you'll believe that too." That night, the outpost lights glowed brighter than usual. The other kids celebrated their safety, but the girl sat quietly beside her father. "Watching the stars?" she asked in a small voice. "Will they come back?" He sighed. "Maybe, but next time we'll be ready." She leaned her head on his arm. "You said humans don't abandon their own." He nodded slowly. "That's right." She smiled faintly. "Then I'll be human too." He looked at her, surprised, then smiled deeply. "You already are, kid." The next morning, she wore the bracelet he gave her with pride. It wasn't just a gift now, it was a promise, a mark of family that no galaxy law could erase. And far above, in the black of space, reports spread across channels about the human man who stood against an empire for a single alien child. They called him the father who defied the stars. And the girl who once wished to be loved as a daughter had finally found what she'd been searching for. Not in her own kind, not in her lost world, but in the heart of a human who refused to let her go.